ChatGPT is probably the most popular piece of software to come out in the past couple of years. And one thing that it really seems to have revolutionized is how we search for information. Like when I was growing up, and this is probably twice as true for those of you who are 30 or older, the original way that I was taught to find information was go to the library and then look things up in books, using the Dewey Decimal System to find the books and then finding pages on specific things in a book's index and so on. But I'm a 90s kid, so I was getting taught this stuff when Google was in its infancy. And of course, Google and similar search engines all but deprecated that old school method of going to the library and looking things up in books. And this is just a slight tangent, but isn't it kind of messed up that in public schools, we're still teaching kids the Dewey Decimal System, which nobody has used for like 30 years, even back in the early 90s. If you at least knew the title of a book that you wanted, you would just ask the librarians if they had it, and then they would type the title into a computer. I mean, at least the libraries in Boston had computers back in the 90s. And then it would tell them what shelf of what bookcase that book was on so that you could then go find it. And more importantly, the computer would tell you if the book is actually available or if it's already been checked out, which not even the Dewey Decimal System can do until you go and find the shelf and you see that it's no longer there. And even then, someone could have just put that book in a different location, like it might actually be somewhere in the library. You don't necessarily know if it's checked out just because it's not in the right spot. So yeah, it's pretty ridiculous that taxpayer money goes towards teaching kids this skill that is less useful than underwater basket weaving, but schools don't seem to teach kids things like advanced search engine techniques, or dorking as it's sometimes called, so that they can do more than just a basic Google search in order to find information. But anyway, search engines all but replaced books, and now it looks like ChatGPT is all but replacing search engines. Kids are using it to write papers, lawyers are using it to do legal research, and even the search engine companies themselves, like Google, Bing, or Microsoft Bing, etc., they are trying to integrate AI, which is really just large language models like ChatGPT, into their systems. So it really does look like we are undergoing a technical revolution here. But despite our technical tools becoming more and more sophisticated with each generation, our ability to use them securely is still severely lacking. Over 100,000 stolen ChatGPT account credentials have been sold on dark web marketplaces just in the past 12 months. And it looks like over 12,632 of those stolen accounts were coming from India. My goodness, sirs. This is not how we do the needful. This is not how we secure our ChatGPT accounts. Now, there's a number of reasons why this ChatGPT credential leak is a really big deal. Of course, this directly impacts the people whose accounts got stolen. They might have lost access to their accounts, at least temporarily. They might have incurred additional charges to their accounts, since ChatGPT is not free as in price or free as in freedom. It's not Libre either, despite being made by a company called OpenAI. But anyway, you got to pay money for tokens, which is the internal currency that they use to generate the text. You have to pay, it looks like 1,000 tokens will get you about 750 words, and this 4-sentence paragraph right here would take 35 tokens to generate. But the biggest loss here that I don't even think you can really put a price on is all of the access to confidential information that hackers and other nefarious people are going to have through these leaked ChatGPT accounts. Like I said at the start of this video, people use ChatGPT like a search engine, and by default, ChatGPT stores all of those prompts, all of those searches or whatever you're asking it, as well as the responses. So hacking someone's ChatGPT account is kind of like hacking someone's Google account, and now you can see everything that they've ever Googled or everything that they've ever looked up if they're using something like Google Chrome and they're syncing that information to their account. So I could just imagine if these hackers or the people that are buying these data sets can probably see a lot of embarrassing prompts that was on someone's account. Like, a lot of people apparently use ChatGPT or similar things as a virtual girlfriend, because for a lot of people, these language models actually pass the Turing test. A lot of people cannot tell the difference between chatbots, programmed chatbots, and real people in a chat room. So you can probably imagine the huge blackmail potential that having months worth of chat logs from someone who's role-playing with a virtual girlfriend has. But what might be worth even more than the prompts and the questions that people were asking ChatGPT is actually the responses from the program. Because the history of responses is also recorded with your account by default. Anybody with access to your account can see what ChatGPT has said to you. And a lot of people use ChatGPT in their careers, and they basically just copy-paste the responses into whatever it is that they're working on. This is especially true for programmers because software development is something that ChatGPT is really good at. If you've got just some basic programming knowledge, you can pretty much have ChatGPT write a program for you, one function at a time, and then just glue things back together, glue the outputs together, which, to be honest with you, is kind of just an evolution of the old school programming methods where you just glue together bits of code that you copy pasted from Stack Exchange. So there's probably a lot of technical, corporate, intellectual property inside of those ChatGPT data sets that somebody can use to hack a company's infrastructure. And I bet you there's a lot of low-hanging fruit in there too. Like, I'm sure someone somewhere has used ChatGPT to generate Django code, and then they didn't even bother changing the secret key that ChatGPT generated for them in the example code. So yeah, something like that would instantly give you access to everything in that company's backend, assuming they're actually using that generated code in production. Or if they use ChatGPT to help them create a game, right? Like, usually video games are proprietary, they're not open source. Well, if you've got access to the responses, you could then reverse engineer that game and then create your own version of it to sell. This is one of the main reasons why companies are banning their employees from using ChatGPT, because so much of that secret sauce that's going into these proprietary systems that companies are designing is actually coming from ChatGPT now. This is actually the specific reason that Apple gave for why they want to ban ChatGPT. They told employees the decision was to prevent the release of confidential information, and that's probably part of the reason why they're working on their own AI right now. Samsung also gave a similar explanation as to why they banned internal use of ChatGPT, but they said to Bloomberg that it was because some of their staff had uploaded sensitive code to the ChatGPT platform, which tells me that the sensitive information in this case wasn't in the response, but it was in the prompt. They probably copy-pasted a bit of code that was throwing them some errors, and they just asked ChatGPT to fix it for them. So there's probably a whole lot of that within this stolen data set as well. So in conclusion, if you are using these language models, whether it's for work or you're just using it to mess around, you really need to be security conscious and realize that there is a lot of valuable information both in your prompts and in ChatGPT's responses. One thing that you might want to do is to just turn off the logging that is storing all these prompts and responses to your account, or at the very least, just turn it off for the more sensitive uses. Just like how people go in incognito mode when they want to search up some sussy stuff. Just remember that just like incognito mode, where Google can still see what you're looking for, OpenAI can still see your prompts and responses. So this is also another reason to prefer or to start I guess, investing into or looking into local large language models instead of these cloud-hosted ones like ChatGPT. Because at the end of the day, the cloud is really just some other guy's computer. And if you're doing your computing on someone else's computer, then obviously that guy who controls that computer ultimately has control over you. Open source, locally hosted models do not have this data leak problem at all. And the corporations are realizing this. Again, that's why all of them want to create their own large language models, because they don't want OpenAI getting all of their IP. And you shouldn't want OpenAI or any other company using these large language models to spy on you. So yeah, hopefully local large language models can become commonplace sometime in the future, just like how PCs used to all be these centralized mainframes that you had to pay people money to use, and then now everybody has their own. But in the meantime, if you are using this cloud-based tech, remember to practice good OPSEC when using it. Like and comment to hack the algorithm, follow me on Odysee, and have a great day.